Hello, everybody. Once again, welcome to Akron Buzz. I'm Tom Steffen, and I am happy to be here with you every time, but I am really happy to be here today to be able to talk with David Barnhardt, the Director of Marketing and
Guest Services at the Akron Zoo.
Anybody who's been around Akron for, well, I've been around about 41 years. I think we all know, we've all heard of, and we all have a lot of conceptions and misconceptions about the Akron Zoo. So we are happy to have David with us here today. He's going to clear it all up for us. He's been around the zoo all his life, and now he's a bigwig at the Akron Zoo too, the Director of Marketing and guest, I want to say Audience Services. You can tell what I'm usually involved with. All right, but anyway, please welcome David Barnhardt. David, just tell me everything you can about the Akron Zoo. Now, I mean, really, there's so much to know and so much to hear about. I think it goes back to about when I was born, or right around there, 1953, right?
Yes, it did. We got our start in 1953. And actually, the story of the zoo kind of goes even before that. In 1918, some brown bears were donated to the city of Akron, and they housed them on Perkins' land there, the old Perkins farm. And they sat, you know, in those woods for many, many years, and the old Perkins Woods area. And then in 1950, a natural history museum opened up on that land and next to the bear exhibit. And then a couple years later, the zoo was born in 1953. So there's a lot of history, you know, going all the way back to the Perkins family in that area. And it's just a great spot on the west side of Akron to be for the zoo.
You say there were bears there. I mean, this is
in 1918, they were housed bears, and you know, they were just sitting in the middle of Perkins Woods, and the city workers fed them, and you know, there was no zoo or anything. They were in a cage.
I was going to say they could be in Perkins.
They were in the cage in the middle of Perkins Woods.
Well, so we've always had some kind of an animal influence in that area.
It goes way back to the early 1900s.
So then in 1953, what actually happened then?
In 1953, the Natural History Museum was there. And the thought was to try to get some more people to come to the Natural History Museum. So they started adding animal collections and opened up the Akron Childrens Zoo. The ironic part about the story is the museum closed and the zoo flourished and is still here today. So, you know, they're trying to get attendance to the History Museum, but it kind of went the other direction, and thankfully the zoo has been here for many, many years. I was just going to say, and we're glad that it did.
Yes, we're glad that it did. Now, all right, so obviously it has grown and grown and grown since 1953. Is there an accreditation that goes with? I mean, do we have a real zoo?
I think we have one of the best zoos in the country.
That's what I wanted to hear.
and actually, we are accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and by their standards, we are a top zoo in the country. There are about 2,000 animal holding facilities in the United States, and about 10% of those are accredited. We're held to the highest standards, and every 5 years we get reaccredited. And they look at everything that we do at the zoo: education, marketing, you know, our finances. I mean, everything, animal care, you know, some of the enrichment programs for the animals, and decide if we're going to be accredited or not. And we have been accredited every year since 1989. The really exciting thing now for us in regards to the AZA is our president and CEO, Pat Simmons, who has been there for almost 30 years at the zoo. She is currently the vice chair of that association, and next year she will become the chair of AZA. So all these zoos that you think, the San Diegos and the Bronx, and she will be the chair of AZA next year. So we are very, very proud to have her here in Akron.
That really is something.
I mean, it's exceptional.
Yeah.
It really is. And you know, like I said, she's been at the Akron Zoo almost 30 years now, and just a top leader in her field. So we're very fortunate to have somebody of her caliber here in Akron.
The last, let me just put it, 10 years or so seems to have shown just an explosion at the Akron Zoo. I mean, I have been there in the last several years, several times. I can't get over it. It's beautiful. It's well kept. It just keeps growing and growing. How has this happened these last 10 years? I'm making that figure up.
No, and you're right on. Actually, the kind of the turning point of the zoo, and one of the biggest things that ever happened in our history is in 1999, we were on the ballot for a Summit County property tax. At the time, we were the only zoo in Ohio not funded by a public tax. We relied on earned revenue, so memberships, admission gate, things like that. And we were growing at that time, and we were starting to turn the corner. We had opened up an exhibit called Tiger Valley and Asian Trail and added penguins. So we were adding more animals. The problem we were running into is it was costing more and more to operate the zoo.
Sure.
And with that earned revenue does come a risk if you have a bad year at the gate. So looking forward to the future and in the stability of the zoo, we knew we had to get some public dollars in. So we looked for a tax levy and went before the voters in '99, and they approved our tax levy by 51%. So they made it clear they want the zoo here, and we had laid out the clear plans of what would happen and what they would like to see at the zoo. And a couple of things back then we heard, in the early 2000s, where they wanted to see more guest experiences, more education, more big cats were at the top of the list. And we felt like we really delivered on those promises. We gave a better guest experience. We increased our outreach programs through education. We added a education center on grounds, Komodo Kingdom. We added some animals like jaguars and snow leopards, some big cats, and then many other animals in that time. And then 7 years later, we had passed our second tax levy, which we're under the current period of
going
right by 63%. So we definitely made some headway. And one thing that I really feel good about the zoo is we really value people's opinion. So this community, we want them to shape this zoo. They are funding the zoo, and this is their zoo. I often say, this is your Akron Zoo. So they help drive our direction of where we're going. So in a couple years, we'll be up for another levy and ask them, those questions about what would you like to see here? Is there anything we're missing? And we'll go forward.
Let's keep it growing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What about the animals? I mean, when it comes down to it, it's all about the animals. And I understand, well, let's go back to 100 years ago when you had those bears up there. We're getting bears back again soon?
We are. We just announced recently a plan called Grizzly Ridge, and this will open in the spring of 2013. We're starting construction on it yet later this year, and it'll include grizzly bears, black bears, coyotes, wolves, a lot of interaction. And one thing we've done the last couple of years when we've been building this new zoo is we are allowing people to get nose to nose with these animals. Our mantra is kind of been, you've never been this close. And we wanted to find one thing that we could do and do it better than anybody in the country. And our niche kind of has become getting people nose to nose with animals. So any of the new exhibits that we've built have done just that, and people will continue to see the same things happen. We'll literally get kids nose to nose with these grizzly bears that are massive animals and very impressive. So it'll be a lot of fun. 2013 is going to be a great year.
But the work is beginning now.
It is.
Tell me about the carousel, the merry-go-round. It was being worked on, or I guess it was ready to open the last time I was there.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Last July 31st, we opened it up, and that's one of our newest projects. And it is a carousel with 33 hand-carved animals. We used a company in Mansfield called Carousel Works, and they designed our carousel for us, and it just turned out beautiful. People really enjoy riding it, and what surprised me is people from my son who's 2 all the way up to I've seen people in their 90s just laughing and having a great time. So it's really for all ages and a delight to see in the center of the zoo there.
And the jellyfish, that's a cool display. Cool. Now I understand though that moves on.
It does.
It
does. We currently have the largest collection of jellyfish in the state of Ohio. We opened that exhibit in 2008, and when we opened that exhibit, we were all excited about it, but didn't know how public would respond because jellyfish kind of have a negative connotation with it. And 2008 actually has been our largest attended year in the history of the zoo.
No
kidding. We have 328,000 people.
It's a beautiful display. It's beautiful to watch them.
They're really art in motion, is what I like to say.
Yes.
I mean, even I was taken back, when we said we were getting jellyfish, but when I started seeing the exhibit take shape, I was blown away by how great it is. So people still have all the way to October 31st to see the jellies, and then next year we'll open up another aquatic exhibit.
Now you say October 31st, that tells me that this is a year-round zoo?
It is.
I mean,
We
it's
are
not just
open,
a summer zoo.
We are open year-round. One of the promises, going back to that tax levy, one of the promises we made back in '99 was we wanted to become a year-round zoo. At that time, we were open seasonally, just April through October, and we wanted to be there 12 months out of the year for people. And wintertime is a great time to come to the zoo with the snow falling. And some of the animals, like the snow leopards, really thrive in that weather, so they are so active in that weather, and it's just a great time to take the family to the zoo. You get a whole different experience than you do in the summer.
You can go year-round. I mean, really, but there is so much really to see and to do, and your educational programs, I know, are a big part of the zoo. Where do you get your animals? I mean, how does the Akron Zoo get grizzly bears. And how does the Akron Zoo get new snow leopards? Is that a sharing thing or what?
It's actually one of the most popular questions we probably get is where do we get our animals? And because we're accredited through the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, we actually use a program with other accredited zoos. And if they're building a new exhibit and getting rid of Komodo dragons, or have our Komodo dragon came from the Miami Metro Zoo, and they had a program down there where they were breeding them.
Oh, yeah.
And so we got them from, so we definitely work with the other accredited zoos and have a great program available to us in that aspect.
What about admission prices, just so we know before we
Sure,
have to
absolutely. Adults are $10. Senior citizens are $6, $6.50. Children are $6. So it's very affordable, very reasonable. And then in the wintertime, we do have reduced admission. So again, just a great time to come in the winter.
You have special things like at holidays, like Halloween and...
We do. We actually have events all year long.
Yeah.
And one thing we've really done is we've branched out a little bit. We certainly are there for families and kids, but we've extended some of our events for other people. We have Brew at the Zoo now for young professionals or anybody that might be into beer and coming down and enjoying the zoo. And so we have programs now for young kids that are age birth through their childhood, and really started to expand those programs. Before, we did a lot of programs for 6-year-olds and above, and now we have programs, for just about anybody that wants to come to the zoo.
Well, it sounds like, it is what I have heard about it recently, and perhaps some of our viewers have too. It's not your grandfather's Akron Zoo, right. And it's better and bigger, and the whole zoo is something that you really do want to see. We thank David Barnhardt for joining us today. I think you should all get to the zoo and make it part of your Akron Buzz.